In Central African time. Thank you very much for lending us your ears for this particular program until 12 midday in Central African time. We open the gates for ancestral sounds, and this is really a space that we've created to speak about indigenous instrumentation on the African continent, to speak to researchers, to instrumentalists, people that are well versed in ethnomusicology on the continent. And today is certainly no different, because we're going to look at a subject matter that I think is really incorporates everything we've spoken about in the last couple of weeks, but looking at the management of this work and what that looks like and what that entails. Managing an indigenous artist is definitely far more than just about the booking of performances or negotiating contracts. It's about safeguarding the cultural heritage, protecting intellectual property, creating economic opportunities, and also being able to ensure that the artists are compensated fairly for the knowledge and traditions that they carry through this work. So as African music continues to enjoy unprecedented global recognition, important questions emerge, like, for example, who should benefit from the growth or the growing interest, if you will, of the artists? How do we protect indigenous artists from exploitation? How do we treat these artists with dignity? And my guest is very big on being able to treat not only the instruments, but the people behind them with dignity. He's been big on that mission for many years. So we're going to unpack this. We're going to look at what is often unseen, the work behind the scenes when we look at indigenous music on the continent, and also explore what it takes to build sustainable careers. Joining me on the line, Mandla Maseko. He's a lecturer at the Tshwane University of Technology, performing artist management specialist, and respected scholar in the creative industry. If you really think about much of what his work examines over the years, it lives at the intersection of culture, of heritage, of business. In the arts, he's managed and worked very closely with many of South Africa's icons, or Southern African icons, like Dorothy Masuku, the late great Azamparo, the late great Philip Nchipitabane. He's served as chairperson for many important institutions. I could Khan An, but he's on the line with me. Ntate Maseko, so beautiful to connect with you. Welcome to the show.
Always great to be invited on your platforms. Greetings to you as well as your viewers of Channel Africa.
Thank you very much. I have to say, the last time I saw you was about a year ago, and you gifted me with a book by Billy Munama. He's written a book on guitar styles and guitar history, and I cherish that gift. So thank you very much for joining us. Such an important subject, looking at indigenous instrumentation and the music, the musicians behind it. But there are other things that happen behind the scenes that really keep things together. I mentioned the contracts and the touring and all these wonderful things that we're seeing, but there's sort of an infrastructure around that happens behind the scenes. Can you perhaps give us a little insight as to what it takes to manage an artist?
Well, look, thank you very much, and I'm very great that today we're touching on this very important subject, because you see, the music industry, of course, is dominated by the front runners, which is the artists themselves that our people love and cherish, and indigenous music performers or creators are really at the forefront of that, because they represent our culture, they represent our tradition, they represent our being, and we love them for who they are. But I think from a music business perspective, we need to also understand that they are not just the vessels that transport our cultural being. They are people who are in business. So the layer of management is really a layer that must look at the professional management of an artist and also look at the career development of an artist. I will before I even classify it to indigenous, let's just talk about artist management.
Right.
and its purpose. Firstly, I think it's unfortunate that in South Africa, artist management has been reduced to not necessarily a career for which is a professional career. Majority of people that are managing our artists is either your wife, your sister, your friend, a person that you grew up with, someone who just a helper. It's really reduced to a helper. Whereas for some of us, from a scholarly perspective, we
Mm-hmm.
know that this is a very necessary career path that most people must follow, because we can't always give the artist the responsibility to do their business when they are also doing the business of composing the music that's the one that we love so much. So there's just so much into the managing of the business of an indigenous musician, like you do with all other commercial artists.
Of course, absolutely. Really, at looking at the business behind it. One thing that you taught me, like over 10 years ago, actually, the very first conversation you had, I remember you saying something to the tune of, the work that I do is not just about managing the artist; it's about also managing the cultural legacy. And we were talking
Yeah.
about Dr. Philip Tabane at the time, and you were unpacking some of the responsibilities that come with that. Perhaps you can give us a few, because this is now a different league that you've been playing in for quite some time, and being able to manage a cultural legacy that then upholds this work and the integrity of the work that the artist is presenting.
Well, you will know that the, those that compose music that is inspired by our art, culture, and heritage,
Mm,
they are more special to me,
mm,
uh, purely because they carry the identity and distinctiveness of any nation. So if I've worked with the likes of the Azar Mparo, who is an exceptional percussionist
yeah.
and just a great composer.
Mm,
Tlokwe Suhume, his rich music of Mino Wataba. So I'm always linked, and I've worked with Tate Lohalane, who
mm,
is a pioneer of Kiba music.
yes.
So my passion has always been that how do you balance the business wealth of the music that they compose and play, and making sure that it is not compromising the cultural significance, but also the distinctiveness of their music for being ambassadors of South Africa. And the beauty about some of this is that when I worked with Ubabu Asheli Mhlope,
Mm,
who has been in the music industry for over 45 years and producing great music, one of the things that really touched me in the process, in my management company, I always give you a 12-month contract, because I want you to know you can get in and be able to get out if you think that I am not doing a great job.
mm,
But what was significant is that the way in which indigenous musicians are so detailed in what they do, you cannot even um, undermine them, even when they are not, because majority of them are illiterate.
mm,
There will be very few of them. For
right.
instance, Ubaba Asheli Mhlope will say to me, bhala ngesilungu bhala ngesintu lapha, ungitshela ukuthi
Yeah.
ithini i-contract yami.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I've got a copy of his contract that was signed when I was managing him,
Mm-hmm.
that he decided for his children to translate all the clause in isiZulu,
Oh,
for
I love
because
it.
he was telling them
Yeah.
what he wants.
Yes.
My job was not to undermine just that part. My job was to understand exactly the type of management that I must actually put in here, which means I will think about the structure of management, because it starts from career planning, brand management,
Mm-hmm.
financial oversight,
Mm-hmm.
marketing and promotion, a booking of the opportunities. But I must be able to translate all of those things in the language at which the artist speak. If it's Dadetwa Kwezihume, I'll speak in Sepedi. If it's Ubabo Ashele Mhlope, I'll be able to speak in isiZulu.
Yeah.
And because I work in the SADC region, I'm now managing DJs, female DJs in the main. One is from Kenya, one is from Zimbabwe, one is from Botswana. So one needs to always understand the dynamics and the identity of the people that you are managing. So indigenous artists for me, it's key that because they are bringing Ubuntu to you first before any other thing. And when you do your job, because it's easy to put in any artist management template into it, so for you to do it, but you need to always move with them so that you don't leave them behind, and they must enjoy their music and reap the rewards of what their music is bringing on the table.
Oh, that is so important. And I think it's so wonderful that you really are incorporating so many other, types of artists from the SADC region into this work. We're in conversation with Mandla Maseko. He's a lecturer, as we'd already established, of course, at the Tshwane University of Technology, but he's a performing artist management specialist who's worked with many iconic artists from Southern Africa, and he's a respected scholar in the space of creative industries overall, and he's run many institutions in South Africa that pay attention to performing artists and the arts, as it were. 22 minutes into 10 a.m., we take a break and return.
Ritmos e Cultura com Jacob Tivani. Ora, calorosas saudações, fiéis ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura. Hoje celebramos não só a música, mas também a persistência, criatividade e paixão que continuam a inspirar gerações de músicos e ouvintes, não só em Moçambique, em África e no mundo lusófono. Ladies and gentlemen, senhoras e senhores, o conceituado Aniano Tamele in the building.
Bilwini kamina kuna tepu la kupima ilona kuva utasfona swakunzi kuranza kanjeni. Bilwini kamina kuna gezi la kuva ningela.
Ai! Ritmos e Cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos das 20 às 21 horas.
Ancestral Sounds on the channel.
We're 24 minutes into 10 a.m. in Central African time, still unpacking a conversation on managing an artist, managing our indigenous music, and really making sure that we uphold these legacies through the work that we're doing with our expert. I mean, I couldn't think of a better person for us to speak to about this particular subject matter, because he really is an expert overall when we look at the business of the arts. Mandla Maseko continues to join me on the line. Dr. Maseko, let's talk about the place that we're in. In modern music, we're seeing that, our music from the African continent is becoming increasingly popular. But how do we, and I'm sure this comes up in a lot of your board conversations and board sittings, how do we ensure that the commercialization of our indigenous music that we can commercialize it, but that it doesn't strip away the cultural meaning of what we're trying to do?
Well, I think that you're quite right. I'm very fortunate that I am the chairperson of the Association of Independent Record Companies of South Africa, which operates in the main in the music territory of the Southern Africa. And with the work that we do with music conferences such as Lesotho Spring International Music Conference, Botswana International Music Conference, which we have championed, is purely because we want to make sure that the artists that produce music that is of their own tradition, or what we will call African music or African classics or indigenous music, we know that although they are getting into a professional career, those that are developing that career must always bear in mind that that music respect the cultural identity that music must be a music that respect the tradition and the community values, without really forgetting the indigenous component of it. Because you see, there are artists that will, for instance, create music, but that music being drawn from what we call music that is in the domain, or what we will call open domain, the music that is of origin, Mino Watamba, Mino Wakoma,
Hmm.
Kiba. This is the music that is created by our people
Yeah.
with no intention to make money out of it. Now, when you take that music, and or you are influenced by that music, we need to make sure that your original music, your music gives us an element of originality, so that we are able then to guide you how to first notify institutions like SAMRO, which is the Southern Africa Music Performance Association, to notify that music and make sure that that music is allocated to yourself. Because as a composer, then you will be getting royalties towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being part of all the other CMOs, or collective management organizations, that will uh, give you the music rights, and then you will then get the music licensing fee when your music is being licensed.
Mm-hmm.
So what is central is that when you get into a space where you're dealing with indigenous music, or music composers, producers, and performers, you need to explain to them that passion alone will not be a good business model.
That's right.
It
Yeah.
must be a model that is understood, that every song that you create, particularly if you do it in South Africa, you've got an ownership of that composition 50 years after death.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means even when our people are creating music, they must know that they are not only creating music for themselves or just to entertain us, but they are creating a heritage that will last for generations to generations to generations. If that is the case, then it's very important for an artist manager to help the artist to be able to create music that will last longer, but also music that will be utilized by users such as broadcasters, so that the children of their children and children's children can enjoy. And this is across the African continent. I mean, I've traveled the continent, fortunately, and every single country that has its own indigenous music, you sometimes see the value of it. Although broadcasters, they most broadcasters, they actually are visiting the usage of African music. We always complain about the dominant of the West, but
Yeah.
we are pushing that the message must be spread that
Yeah.
if you play the music of our people,
Mm-hmm.
not only do you encourage the children
Yeah.
to love their identity and their distinctiveness, but you are helping families to put bread on the table.
This is it. This is somebody that gets it. I'm so inspired. Okay, Butmidlos. Many people call you Butmidlos because they just love and respect you. When are you having a master class on this? Because I think this is so important in being able to teach us the various structures within music, what's important, what we should still be filtering into the commercial space of this infrastructure. When are you hosting a master class? I'm sorry to put you under pressure, but I think you really need to host one soon.
Well, I think let's do it. Let's do it anytime.
Let's do
I
it.
was very fortunate that every Tuesday I teach at Tshwane University of Technology,
Right.
and this is the message that I'm spreading. I do moderation at Wits University, so and I speak in many platforms. But I think for me, what is central, and this is the niche market that I have a champion for myself. And I think my PhD speaks to that as a matter of fact, that we need to help our people to understand that music is not about entertainment.
100%.
Music is a business asset. If you know, and I just said it now, that this is only one song. Take Jerusalem, for instance, a gospel song that has broken so many records across. Jerusalem broke records because although it is a gospel song, but it tells you that people don't necessarily need to hear what you say. People love the music because they understand that the meaning of that music comes deep from your roots, it comes deep from your own culture, it comes from your own tradition and your values. So for people like us, we sit in this platform so that we are able to translate the business imperatives of music.
Okay.
I really don't buy the story that you do music and then you get poor. I've been in the music industry. I don't think that any musician needs to be poor, because music is not really about the hit song.
And you've
Music
said this, you have said this several times.
Platforms.
Yes, definitely. And this is the hallmark of the work, is that it really is about much of what you're doing is the business of the arts, but it's also empowerment work in many ways. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but there's just so much to unpack. Perhaps we can have a part 2 with you and Tate Maseko, but thank you always. I really, really appreciate the work you do. Mandla Maseko, lecturer at the Tshwane University of Technology, but he wears many hats as a performing arts management specialist, as a respected scholar in the business of the arts, and so many other wonderful things. It is 10:33. Figileli Mwate standing by with the latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African